Hello and welcome to another episode of Making Sense of the Mind. And today I thought I would probably address a myth that I think generally comes up quite a lot in the self-development world. And I think the intentions behind most things that people do from a self-development perspective are so wonderful. Yeah, I remember it probably hit its peak maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where we were just hit with a plethora of people selling gratitude journals. Now, I've got nothing against gratitude journals. I think they're a wonderful idea. But what I'm really, I suppose, more interested in, as opposed to taking a moment to feel gratitude or for a moment of having some sort of emotional awareness, is to actually be able to train our sense of emotional fitness instead. So what do I mean by that? Now, if you've ever bought a gratitude journal or you've ever seen a fridge magnet that tells you to be, to have some level of gratitude in your life, normally there's around about 3 to 5 things. And the whole point is that you wake up in the mornings and suddenly you write the 3 things that you're most grateful for. But I would equate to that as the same as going to the gym. You've got your gym stuff, you go to the weight section and you pick up a fairly light dumbbell. Now, hypothetically, if I went to the gym, picked up the lightest dumbbell and just curled it 3 times, popped it back on the shelf, well, the first time I ever went in to do that would probably make my bicep work in a particular way. I probably would have had to have done something to strengthen that muscle, because the only way that a muscle ever gets stronger is by pushing it to that place of discomfort, right? You put your muscle under so much strain that to the point where the muscle fibers actually rip. And that's when the signal gets sent to say, crikey, we can't handle this kind of ripping. So when we repair, we're going to have to repair stronger. It turns out that the brain is exactly the same. So I go to the gym. The first time I go and I lift a weight 3 times, chances are I might have just done enough to rip that muscle in my bicep, depending on the heaviness of that weight. But if I went back the next day and the next day and the next day and tried to do the same thing, same weight, 3 times and popped it down, how long do you think I'd go for before my progress stopped? A day? 3 days? It wouldn't take long before actually it was doing absolutely nothing for my muscle. And I feel like gratitude journals do the exact same thing, where you go in, you say the 3 things that you're grateful for, and you're not forced to push yourself in any way. So I'm going to share with you my number 1 favourite exercise with probably the campus name on the planet that I know absolutely begins to develop your emotional fitness to the point where you can't help but start to see things in a different way. It is so simple, it's completely free, and I've seen people go through tremendous changes just by being able to implement this. So if you're happy to carry on, I would, I suppose, like to invite you to allow me to be your personal trainer of your mind for this video, if you're up for that. So where do we start? We start with being able to understand that focus is everything. I think the famous saying that might have come from Tony Robbins is, where focus goes, energy flows. And it's so true. So hopefully you're in a very safe place, maybe at home right now, watching this video. I'd like to give you a little memory challenge first before we crack on with this exercise. I'd like you to just take a moment and just go from left to right. In fact, let's go the full circle, the full 360-degree view. I want you to look for everything in the room that's red. Now, the average person remembers around about 7 things plus or minus 2. So between 5 or 9 things. If there's 5 or 9 things in your room, wherever you are, your bedroom, living room, that's probably what you'll see. So I want you to really take a moment to try and find as many things as you can. And each object will class as one version of that colour. So you can't say, oh, there's, I've got 3 sofas that are all red, so those are 3 different things. You know that there's just one item that's technically red that's a sofa. So you're going to just do this 360-degree view and look for everything that's red. And I want you to do that right now watching this. So really take a moment, just look for red, look for red. Really take it in. And that's it. Now, hopefully there's no one next to you. If so, you're probably being very antisociable. But I want you to just close your eyes and just start to recall out loud everything that you saw that was green. Now, you might be able to come up with 1 or 2 things, but chances are you might be thinking, hang on a second, I thought he said red. Well, I did. But if you open your eyes now and you look around, and this time, and this isn't a trick, really, really look for that colour, look for green. Look for green. Do the exact same thing, look for green, and close your eyes. Did you see more green that time? Of course you did. So my question is why? And the answer is always the same, right? Because I was looking for it. Now, what I find really extraordinary about that is we're using a particular system in our body called the reticular activating system, which is when we're focusing on something, we'll find it, even if we're not necessarily consciously looking for it. So what I mean by that is the first time around when you were looking for red, you started to see everything that was red so intently that you started to allow all other colours to fall into the blind spots. So the second time around when you were looking for green, you saw more green that time, right? No one suddenly changed everything in the room around. You just started to change your perspective so that all the things were green were starting to come into your conscious perception. I hope that makes sense. But the truth is that emotions and memories are exactly the same. Now, what you'll find is that there'll be two people who can often go through some similar tragedy and they can react in two different ways. And we know that, hang on a second, it wasn't the tragedy that would have done that. It was their perception of that event. And so what I want you to do is the main tool for this, I'm going to give you the name of the tool because it's so camp, which is why I've probably remembered it and used it over and over again when I've worked with clients, is it's called the sparkling moment. And it's so simple. All you have to do is remember 10 positive moments that happened in the last 7 days. Now, the trick here is that it's going to be a minimum of 10. Now, for a lot of people, they might find this a real struggle, but that's the point. Because what will happen is you might come up with 1 or 2, or who knows, you might come up with 7. But at some point, you're going to hit an absolute block. And it's in that moment that we're really going to push and keep going. Because I guarantee you, because we know this is how the brain works, that when you first start looking for something, you might find a few memories crop up. But there's going to have been some memories that could have been wonderful that just fell into the blind spots. And the whole point here is it's almost like we're going to the mental gym and we're lifting that weight and we're really pushing to try and find another positive thing that randomly pops out. And it can be uncomfortable because what happens, I've done it with plenty of people who they get to a place and they're absolutely convinced. They say, Les, I'm scraping the barrel here, there's nothing else. And it's when we go through that moment of discomfort where I say, come on, 2 more, 3 more, that suddenly they'll find that something just pops out of nowhere. And sometimes it can be the most wonderful memory of the week, and yet it just went into the blind spots. Now, this isn't about positive thinking. I love a happy clappy seminar as much as the next person, but this really is about intelligent thinking. It's about being able to fish out the things that actually happened, but because perhaps we were more in a red filtered mood, they would have gone to the blind spots. We never would have taken the time to fish them back. And I'll give you an example of how powerful this is and how much of a game and how much of a trick our mind can play on us. I remember, it must have been about 5.5 years ago now, I had a client who had to reschedule one of the sessions and they came in the following week. And the reason that they rescheduled their session is because they tried to take their own life and they were in hospital the night that they were supposed to be coming to see me the next day. And when they came to see me, they, as you can imagine, were just in the worst of moods. And they turned up and I said, okay, you know the score, sparkling moments, what positive things have you been up to? And as you can imagine, they were just, I wouldn't say fuming, but certainly not in the most positive space. And they said, Les, as you can imagine, I'm scraping the barrel here. Just being here is a positive. I said, fantastic, that's 1. Now they thought they were scraping their barrel at 1 and they started to get a little bit tetchy and I started to push them because I knew there would have been something. The whole point is that we were just training the brain. They needed to work that particular part of their brain to the point of discomfort where they would start to grow, where they would start to see green in a world that was covered in green and less of the red. We got to 10. It took about 5 to 6 minutes and it wasn't a comfortable experience for either of us, but we got to 10. And so I know for a fact that if they can do it, and if you're watching this, you can do it too. Now, does this mean that there's going to be no more red things that we're ever going to see in our life? Of course not. But the whole point is that we live in a world where there's red and green things. There's good and bad things happening all the time. And what I'm saying is it's completely your choice to decide which one you're going to focus on. I think it was Einstein, one of my favourite quotes is, there's only really one big decision that all of us have to make, which is to decide whether or not we're going to live in a hostile or a friendly universe. And what this exercise does, just by pushing to the point of discomfort, as opposed to lazily picking 3 things you're grateful for and throwing it onto the pile, is it allows you to actively move those filters from a red world to a green one. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And what I'd love to hear is, as opposed to just listening to this and moving on to the next video, comment below what your 10 sparkling moments are, because they don't have to be big things. It's all relative. I remember I had one person who came in, it was on the same day. One of their sparkling moments was that they got a PPI windfall of about £14,000, to about $20,000. It was incredible. But someone came in after them, and a sparkling moment for them was, they said, Liz, I was doing the washing up and I looked outside and I could see the flowers were blooming. And so it's all relative. They can be big and small. It can be a positive thought. I can't wait to hear what it is that you've got below. So I want to hear all 10. Don't say I got to 6 and I was really happy. You've got 10 in you. And if 10 was easy, push to 12. The whole point isn't to write a nice positive list for ourselves. It's to push that part of the brain to a new way of looking at things. And that's how we make progress. I hope you enjoyed this and I can't wait to hear your comments below. You take care. Bye.